Hey everybody, and we're here with another interview, and this time we have Spy Nintendude, aka Michael Brancato, aka host of Pound 6, aka Godlike TO, aka Ice Climbers that will be at Battle of the Five Gods next week. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How's it going?
It's going alright, just got home. We have a Melee It On Me show later. So, how's the Pound 6 going for you?
It's going really well. I think in terms of like the logistics, I've been very ahead of the game for a long time now. So now it's just coming down to executing the event, to carrying basically all the sponsors we're working with, and the reward shop, which I hope picks up a little bit of steam. I think it's been a little slow despite the positive perception.
Right. What have you noticed that's been selling pretty well?
Mainly the apparel items have been doing the best. I haven't looked at the actual sales in a bit, but I think that the hoodies in particular are doing pretty well. There's a lot of different kinds too. Actually, I think the best selling item might be the Smash GG limited edition purple hoodie.
Yeah, I was actually eyeing those. Which goal is closest to getting unlocked? Do you know offhand?
Yeah, I think the mono character crew battle with 4 crews is the one that's closest right now.
Okay.
That was also a much cheaper goal than the other ones, since it doesn't involve flights or paying for venues or anything.
That makes sense. So, we'll talk about you as a player because you're a phenomenal TO, but we want to talk about you as a player.
Okay.
So how do you feel? How did you feel when you heard that you were going to be one of the 20 players?
I was honored and maybe a tad surprised, although maybe I shouldn't have been. So going by Melee It On Me rankings, I'm number 25, which I thought was a little bit of a snub. I think I should have been like in the 20 to 22 range perhaps. But going by that ranking, I shouldn't have been invited. So I'm assuming that my top 8 at Genesis secured me the spot.
Yeah, and also the fact that you beat Mewtwo King.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So you'll be traveling next week, and so you saw your pool, and what do you think about it?
I think it's both a good draw and a bad draw at the same time. So I probably pulled the best possible first seed for me. Mewtwo King. Just because I've taken sets off him before on multiple occasions. I think that had I gotten PP, it probably would have been just as good for me. I would feel pretty good about my chances versus him.
Yeah.
Especially because he doesn't really have a chance to play versus Ice Climbers, like, ever, to my knowledge.
That makes sense.
So, yeah, I would have liked to see either Mewtwo King or PP instead of the rest. Although it would have been nice to play Armada, even though it probably wouldn't have gone well for me. I've just never played him in tournament before.
So you got Mewtwo King, who you've been 3 times, if I'm correct, in sets. Have you played him more than that? I know you played him more, but have you won more than that?
I've won 3 sets, twice at one Xanadu, and then at Genesis 3.
And then you also played him at MLG Worlds, I believe, where he 3-0'd you, but then this time around, you got the better end of him, and he's kind of been hot and cold against Ice Climbers. You know, he beat Wobbles at PAX South. But I guess, what did you see as the key differences when you played him at MLG and when you played him at Genesis?
So at MLG, he won game 1. Like, I didn't really, I guess, adapt to his Peach very well at that tournament, and I think that him winning game 1 gave him a lot of confidence, and confident Mewtwo King is much better than not confident Mewtwo King.
Well, what do you mean by that? Like, what makes him, what's that, like, magic formula? Like, what, because, a lot of people say it, I say it, but what is it exactly that changes when he's not confident?
When he's not confident, he starts playing really scared, and doesn't want to go in. And I feel like camping Ice Climbers just isn't a good strategy in the long term because they punish so much harder than other characters.
That makes sense. And then you get your reads, and then whenever you're in a skirmish, you're probably reading that he's going to be doing the most defensive option, and then it becomes very predictable. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd say so. And also in MLG, because he had confidence, he was even using other characters. And maybe that wasn't because he was confident, but he just felt like trying it. And he used a different character every game, and that made it really hard to adapt. I had to make adjustments at each game, and I wasn't able to do it in time.
I see.
But at Genesis, when he just played straight beach the whole time, not only did I win game one, I kind of had to clutch it out too. I think I was down most of the game.
Yeah.
But going into the later games in the set, I had already kind of figured out what to do, so I just had to execute it.
That makes sense. So there's like a perception bias, and I think it, in terms of public perception, it kind of hurts you. Like, because if we're the role reverse, right? And say like Wobbles was the guy in your seat at Genesis 3, I think everybody would have been really excited. And then for you, when you won, there was a lot of hate. There was empathy from Muti King, and everybody was discrediting you. And it feels like it's a trend that's happened for a while. Like, how do you deal with
that? I kind of just know how to ignore it at this point. Make liberal use of the block button on social media. And I just feel confident in what I do. Like so a lot of the hate comes from people see me as a wobbler, and I don't see myself as that. Like, I think that I legitimately play melee in like the neutral game, and I just think that my neutral game is so strong that I find grabs, and then when I have a grab, the optimal punish is the wobble. I don't see myself as fishing for wobbling or anything.
I see.
Maybe I'm down by like a really huge margin, and I'm like, okay, the only way I can win is against lucky grabs. Like, that happens, sure, once in a while.
Does it get tiring though when like people always discredit you, right? It seems like certain players always get the benefit of the doubt, but with you, it seems like you always get discredited, and that might be slightly reflected in how you were perceived on the rank this year.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and also like most of the spectators of this game have come to the scene in the past few years. Those people don't know that I've played most of my career when wobbling was banned. And in fact, my breakout tournament was at a wobbling bands tournament, the Big House 3. But most people came into the scene after that, so they don't really know about my past. They just see me on screen as using wobbling because it's legal now.
Okay, I see. And then I actually didn't know that. That's actually really interesting. I always forget because I believe you beat PewPew that tournament, and I think you got 5th, 7th.
I got 5th at Big House 3. Right. Beating PewPew. And I was always kind of known as like a hidden boss. Like, prior to that, that's the first time I did it on like a national stage.
And then now you're starting to break out. You got 9th at Apex earlier last year, where you actually had to also TO the event.
Yeah.
And then you've gone a handful of top 8s, so you've been doing a really good job for yourself. You beat Shroomed, you beat Westballs. This time around, you have Plup, who you've never played against before. What do you think about that?
I give the slight edge to him because he's a better player than me. I think that I have a decent shot at winning. Whenever I've money matched him like several times now, at the past Evos, and I've won 1 set and I've lost I think 3. Although the games are usually down to the wire, and these are all ice climbers for a Samus. I actually feel really confident in that matchup if I'm playing well, and I think that it's even if not even in ice climbers' favor, to be honest, which I know goes against the public perception of that matchup.
Well, I mean, from my understanding, you can get away with shielding for extended periods of time and reacting to the grab, and there's...
Yeah. I think that Samus kind of loses the shields, to be honest.
Makes sense.
And then you can like frustrate her with projectiles, and then a lot of things that she does are really risky because if you shield it, then she gets wobbled for it.
Yeah. And I kind of see that with also your fellow MDVA Ice Climbers Chu when he plays Hugs.
Yeah, Chu is actually really good at that matchup too. In fact, I have not seen him lose to a Samus besides Plup, like, ever. And he almost beat Plup at Paragon. It was game 3 last stock, I think.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And, I mean, he beat Duck the last time they played, and he's beaten Hugs twice in the past 6 months. So that's definitely, like, we're past 8 months or so. So yeah, Chu's also pretty good at that matchup. I think Wobbles also likes it, but I haven't seen him play the matchup in a long time.
Yeah, Taj was actually mentioning it because I think he plays a Pocket Samus, and he was telling me how hard it is sometimes to just even hit Sopo because
Yeah, it
it's a
is.
shield.
I actually think that like Sopo is almost like a bad matchup for Samus. I'm not gonna say it's bad, but like Samus has no efficient way to kill Popo, and once Popo gets in, he can actually do a lot of damage, like keep Samus in the air with up airs. Um, yeah, he just does pretty well relative to Sopo's other matchups.
I guess we'll say
So,
deceptive.
yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it.
Okay, so you have Mewtwo King. It's doable. I wouldn't necessarily call you the favorite, but it's doable. Plup also doable. Um,
Yeah,
and then you
yeah, and
have
also with that, with the second tier of players, I do think that that was also the worst possible draw I could have gotten. I would have much rather played Westball's Axe or Shrooms.
you
Um,
wanted Wobbles' pool, huh?
who's in Wobble's pool?
It's Hungrybox, Lucky, and Shroomed.
Well, I don't want to play Hungry Box, but I think that that would have been pretty good for me.
Yeah, I could see you more likely getting out of that one. And then we have S2J. You've beaten him once, I believe, at Paragon LA, but he
Yeah.
got the best of you at Big House 5. What do you think about this matchup?
I think that SCJ is really good at it, and I think that it's a fairly evenish matchup. Um, maybe Falcon's favor if he's playing like super well,
Mm.
which SCJ typically does. It's definitely winnable for me. Like as you said, I've beaten him before. I 2-0'd him at Paragon. He did 3-0 me at Big House, but the games were pretty close. I think I had to drop the lead in 2 of the games.
Yeah.
Um, so I think I just got to play good. And also, I think Wobbles almost beat him at
PAX South.
X. Yeah. So he's definitely shown some vulnerability in the matchup.
Yeah.
This is another case where I think that out of the 3 seeds, I got one of the worst draws. The worst would have been MacD.
Yeah. I agree with that. And so, there are certain situations where, we've seen Johnny stock Lucky recently, and then we had players that, just go off, and it almost feels as if, maybe you in particular as an Ice Climbers main, where you just honestly feel like you can't do much about it. And some of the examples I bring is whenever an Ice Climbers plays Hungry Box or Armada, or when Mango goes off, like he did against you at Genesis. So, like, what do you feel about Ice Climbers in those kind of situations where it almost feels hopeless?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have some weaknesses. They have a hard time regaining stage control once the opponent does something really effective on him. But they also have really solid neutral, and the key is just not to let those situations happen.
What do you do when Mango's just like running all over you like that, though, where it feels like a shine just insta kills you, or insta kills Nana?
It's tough. I mean, Fox wins that matchup, and when Mango's playing amazing, I think only really Armada can deal with it. Like he not only did he run over me, but he ran over PP and Axe like almost just as bad at that tournament.
That's fair.
But I mean, typically, if I'm getting run over, I just try to find a good read to knock him down. Like just place a well-placed F smash or something. And if I can just get one of those, it kind of like slows him down and makes me be like, oh, okay, I gotta slow down in respect to this.
So basically, stop the bleeding as much as you can.
Yeah, I would say so.
So Wobbles mentioned something after he played Professor Pro, I believe at B6, about local maximas and how he makes a conscious decision not to wobble. Have you read it before?
I read it, yeah.
What do you think about that stance where you forego guaranteed punishes and, try for different things?
I don't really agree with it, but I think it's also just the way I look at Melee. So a lot of Ice Climbers players, they actively try to find wobbles or find infinites, and they think a lot about it because they think that's how they're going to win.
Right.
And I think for players like that, what Wobble says has a lot of value because he's basically saying, don't think about wobbling, just like play the game and try new things. And I think that's already the way I play the game. Is I very rarely am actively trying to find that grab somewhere. I just try to play solid neutral and win neutral, and if it leads to a grab, then so be it. Then I'll take the grab and use the infinite.
That makes sense. So what I was like kind of alluding to in the last couple questions was, do you ever feel like you're limited against as playing in Ice Climbers, right? Because whenever I watch Armada or Hungrybox play you guys, it just seems like this matchup's unwinnable. Have you ever considered switching mains, or are you just sticking with Ice Climbers?
Definitely sticking with Ice Climbers. I'm actually thinking about a possible secondary for Hungrybox, and specifically Hungrybox, because his style is really hard to deal with. I don't want to say what character. I'll just say it's not Fox. But I don't think that would definitely not be ready by South by Southwest in the event I had to play him. It's just kind of like a long-term thing I've been thinking about. Although I do want to try to theory craft it as best as possible with Ice Climbers and try to find an answer to his camping strategy. And then if I just can't find an answer, then I'll try out what I've been working on.
So what are... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, as for Armada, I've never played him in tournament. So, from my experience playing him in friendlies, I think that I think I can win with Ice Climbers.
Wow.
I've just yet to be given the opportunity.
Got it. And then, so what are your goals for 2016? Because, you're an event host, you're one of the best in the Smash universe, but what are your goals as a player? So when we get to December 2016, what do you want to say that you've accomplished?
I'm at the point where if I've definitely improved based on my results, then I'll be satisfied. I honestly think that becoming like a god level player at this stage of my life is probably a little bit out of reach. It's because I have a career on the side. I have a career, and gaming is still ultimately a side thing for me. I can't fully dedicate time to it. So as long as I'm improving, and I think that I think that me being like in the demigod tier is very feasible to do. Because I've beaten most of those players already.
Yeah, you have. Do you think up ahead, we have Mango, let's see, who's up there? Mango, Leffen, Armada, and Mewtwo King, who are pretty much full-time, and we have a bunch of people like yourself that also have a career juggling. Do you see the line drawing, the gap widening further between them and everybody else who's not committing to a full-time Smash?
I don't see the gap widening. I think that Hungrybox is an example of someone who's done both. He was a full-time student, and now he's a full-time chemical engineer, I believe, and he's still like the best player in the U.S. right now. Though he's been up there for a while, so it's hard to say like if he was on the come up like during his like school years, like would he have been able to get this far? I don't really know.
Okay. And then I have a couple last series questions, and this kind of pertains to the theme of the tournaments. So, in the span of the next 2 months, give or take, we have Battle of the Five Gods and Smash Summit 2, both catering to top players and being invitationals. Being that you are a grassroots TO and events like Pound 6 are grassroots oriented, are you worried that top players aren't going to attend those events anymore?
No, I'm not worried about it. I think that there's always going to be certain grassroots events that shine above the rest, such as Big House. Like I don't see it a day and age where top players are skipping Big House because there's other events to go to. But I think that maybe some of the B tier grassroots events might start to drop off a bit, potentially, unless they step it up.
I see. Well, I think that's pretty much all the questions I have, and of course, thanks for being on doing this interview. I know that you're busy with Pound 6 and you're going to be traveling next week. Any last shout-outs that you want to give?
I want to give a shout out to Splice. They're a really good sponsor and they treat me super well. And shout outs to the Pound 2016 team. You guys are great. Shout outs to Cornell Smash, and also shout outs to Shoot, I I had it in my mind, and now I can't remember what it was.
MacD, Wobbles, MDVA.
Well, I can shout out the fellow ice climber sports out there. Oh yeah, of course. Shout out to all my supporters because I find that my haters are more vocal than my supporters, but I do really appreciate my supporters.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, and we'll have more of these in the future.
All right, thanks for having me.